The Point of View is sponsored by First National Bank. First National Bank, how can we help you? And Cowbell Coffee. Cowbell Coffee. Taste it, love it.
Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show on television. Here on The Point of View, we get the right guests, ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. It's an interactive show. If you're watching, you have a question or a comment, please join us via the WhatsApp number on the screen. If you're watching on social media, please press the like button and share. Don't forget The Point of View is brought to you by First National Bank. How can we help you? And Cowbell Coffee. Taste it, love it. Today, I'm going to speak to the conveners and the principal actors of the Fix the Country hashtag and its various mutations. So, who are they? What are their main issues? What do they want to see from whom, when, and how? Those questions will be answered hopefully tonight. We'll be right back. So the country has been overtaken by a hashtag that's done millions of impressions in the past 4.5 weeks. It's the Fix the Country Now, Fix Ghana hashtag. It even generated some unwanted children, including Fix Yourself. Tonight I'm speaking to a couple of the conveners of this very interesting hashtag, which is gradually shifting from a social media campaign into something which is more above the line. I have in studio a lawyer, Oliver Bakavomawo in studio. Oliver, welcome to the show.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
We'll also be joined later on by Gabriel Adai. He's known on social media as Spooky the Maniac. He's also one of the conveners. There are so many of them. There's also Kali J and others, but tonight I'm focusing on just two of them. So essentially trying to understand what they actually want fixed, and do they have a specific list of demands? What really are their issues? Gabriel, I'll join Gabriel soon. Oliver, thank you for joining us. So, when did this start? Because I think for us in traditional media, we saw it, is it a month ago? Was it just a month ago? When did it start?
So, one of the things I've talked about consistently is the fact that for a lot of people, people's awakening to it and the ways in which a lot of the people who are self-identifying, whether as conveners or as people who are mobilizing with Fix the Country, everybody's consciousness around it came at different points in time. Okay. So for the group and a lot of people who have been talking about on social media, you could say that they've been talking about these issues for years, right? Like traditional media's attention to it is when the hashtag Fix the Country gained some level of popularity.
Okay.
But even before then, there was Speak Up Ghana.
Speak Up Ghana.
Yes, where people were tweeting and sort of building a sense of growing confidence about the need to voice these things. Mm-hmm. And I've always said that I do my social media mainly on Facebook. And so there's a generational divide between Facebook and Twitter. And when Fix the Country crossed over onto the Facebook world, is when a number of people like myself became interested in the concept and a lot of young people speaking up. So it's been bubbling up for a long time. But I think it came into prominence somewhere first week of May.
So you're saying that this was actually boiling on Twitter for much, much longer than... So there's a demographic between Twitter and Facebook. Absolutely. So Twitter is younger, angrier.
Yes.
Facebook is older.
I don't know about angrier, but definitely younger. Yes.
Definitely younger.
Yes.
So, and it started as Speak Up Ghana.
Yes.
I see. So was it before 2020 election or after 2020 election?
So definitely after 2020 elections. I think the sense of, using a hashtag to self-identify these concerns came after the 2020 elections. But it's been a host of different people talking about different issues.
But do we know who coined the phrase Fix the Country? Because as you said, there were other things.
Yes.
Who coined the phrase?
So the first person to use it officially was the person who tweets under
Kalije
or Jai Jimmy. So he used
Jai Jimmy.
Yes, so that's the Twitter handle.
Jai Jimmy.
Yes, I mean it speaks to the Republic itself, right? Like
Kalije.
We're consistent, mad and foolishness and doing things the same way. This stupidity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So I think it's
he used it first,
yes,
and then it caught on.
Yes,
even though Speak Up Ghana didn't really catch on.
So I think it wasn't a question of catching on. It's more that Fix the Country became a shorthand for how different people were feeling about it, right? But Speak Up Ghana was the process leading into Fix the Country. So Speak Up Ghana was, let's talk about these things.
What are the typical issues that were, and we'll come to the demands and those things later, just in terms of the social media, what were the type of issues that were finding solace in the Fix the Country conversation, typically?
I think generally it's been socioeconomic issues for the most part in the very beginning of the conversation. But the interrogation of those socioeconomic issues as to what structures produce those problems became much later on as more voices joined into became part of the conversation naturally. So people then started reflecting on, but why do things continue to be this way? And that's how it has been grounded.
So when you say socioeconomic, give me an example.
I mean, people are talking about jobs, people are talking about roads, people are talking about everyday lived realities as young people in this republic, unemployment, people are talking about, general corruption, people are talking about nepotism, and even being able to get ahead, having to rely on somebody before you can be introduced to another person. So those problems have grounded a feeling of hopelessness. Where do you turn to if you have nobody who's speaking for you? And that's sort of the main trends you can talk about, right?
But these things have been there for a long time. Unemployment has been an issue for many years. Bad roads have been there, nepotism, healthcare. So, was there a catalyst? Because there obviously has to be something that, you understand what I'm saying?
No, I understand completely what you're saying. I think it's been a reaction of a lot of people where we are definitely looking for a single purpose narrative. It has to be this clincher. It must be this. And that's been a response of government itself. Personally, for me, I think, and for different people have different points at which things connect to them. So I'll give an example that I've talked about consistently. But the first time, before this thing came into my attention, it was after the aftermath of Sam Jones' speech, Culture of Silence, right? And I've been invited on Newsfile to talk about Culture of Silence, and I talked about it in sociological, psychological, and different aspects of it. And mid-conversation, I actually surprised myself, and I said, perhaps the reason why a lot of people are feeling this is that an element of Ghanaian democracy is the street protest culture. And our protest culture is being on the street and being vocal. But COVID has taken that away. And so perhaps that is grounding the feeling where people are feeling voiceless in a way. So when I first saw it, my immediate reaction is, perhaps this is the opportunity to recapture that protest culture that has forged the Ghanaian democracy.
But that's interesting because the point you make about protest culture can be debated. I remember Professor Gafaru of Legon did a presentation at Star Ghana. This is April. And he actually contrasted Ghana to about 4 other African countries and showed that Ghanaians were not very interested in protests. In fact, he had about 4 parameters: willingness to join others to protest on an issue, willingness to join others to write even to a DCE or go for a community meeting or volunteer. And on all the 4 parameters, Ghanaians' experience and willingness to do either of those things was very low. So I'm surprised you talk about Ghanaian protest culture.
So this is the thing. I think that a lot of times, one of the tragedies of democracy is that it erupts or takes away our memory of the past and how in which Ghanaians have traditionally mobilized. So when you go back to the roots of how we even, shook off the colonizer, it came from 1948 protests. That accelerated the drive towards independence, right? And protests can be street-level protests, but protests through letter writing. Ours did not evolve into armed revolution like the Mau Mau in Kenya or different places. It was that being on the street, boycotting European goods, writing letters to the metropole and saying that, no, we want to be recognized. And I think it's inherently Ghanaian in my thinking. And when you go back into other generations, even whether mobilizing against the Unigov idea, coming into independence with Kumipreko and all that, those striking examples of how Ghanaians have traditionally mobilized and talked about issues and to drive even some sense of systemic change has always been part of our culture. If you're expecting it in the way in which democracy has evolved, town hall meetings, let small groups mobilizing and different things, we forget the legacy that military rule has had on Ghanaians. Like, for instance, I always say that we have normalized the fact that we have so many checkpoints where police ask you to lower your glasses and shine their lights into it. That is a relic of military past. It's unconstitutional. It's an invasion of your privacy. But we have accepted them as part of our norm. But those chip away at our confidence to confront authority, to debate these issues, and to be vocal about them.
So you think the ban on public gatherings as one of the COVID measures also help to pent up feelings? Because I think the last person who did a protest was this guy from Freedom Fighters, Economic Freedom Fighters. Yeah. I think he did a protest when there was George Floyd, and I think he was arrested.
The vigil.
Yes, I'm not too sure if there have been any other serious protests.
I mean, there was Drop the Chamber, there was Hijab is an Identity, that have all happened within the past few years. Yes. So those have always been there. I mean, perhaps we don't notice these trends, but at various times it becomes a cathartic release for people to get on the streets or try to do something and dissipate those feelings of.
Okay. Now, I remember when the finance minister that fateful Sunday addressed the press conference under the auspices of Information Minister Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah, you and some of the other Fix the Country people thought he had missed the point. In fact, let me just read the story. It says, a convener of the Fix the Country protest says, government should have kept quiet to listen to the people as they vented their spleen virtually. Oliver Bakavomao, the man sitting here, said, the government, instead of listening to the cries of the people, organized a press briefing the same day the Fix the Country movement had chosen to protest. This is not the time to speak. It's the time to listen. So one press conference today isn't solving the problem. Government failed to listen today, and that is a problem for us. Some would have said, you say you want the country fixed. I'm telling you how I'm fixing the country. What's your problem?
I think that I've always said that we're a republic of quick fixes. And that once somebody says something, we immediately want to deploy answers, and usually paternalistic ones, that I have all the answers. We do not think that if a single government or single institution had all the answers, we would be in this mess. That's our feeling. But more importantly, on that day, we feel like for a very long time, this is the first time there's sort of a break in transmission. That the people who have been, paternalized and spoken to were seizing an opportunity to be heard. And let's not forget the circumstances under which we had to deploy a virtual protest. We wanted to go on the streets to gain some level of street-level legitimacy, to bring the message to different people within different communities. So the circumstances, I felt, were stone deaf. And I gave an example where a lot of young people were saying, we've lost belief in the promises of government. Like, your word has no meaning for us. And then the very next day, the same day, the finance minister organizes and gives a list of promises. The media men turn to us and says, are you satisfied? Has it been fixed? You see, you're missing the point. We say we don't believe in promises. You give us more promises, and then you ask us whether this has been
So what should they do? They should just let you vent your spleen?
So this is the thing. It is very important in the way in which we construct the nation that people at various junctures are allowed to be able to talk. Now, let's not forget, a lot of the conversations are happening in the virtual space. We haven't downloaded that virtual space into the offline communities. And we cannot go into solutions mode unless a lot of Ghanaians have been brought into the conversation. And that is what we are trying to do. Then we are going to get to the solutions. But before you get there, understand what the people are saying. Get grounded information about people's lived realities. Then together we can figure out how to fix it. But if you want to shut down the conversation immediately, then you're missing the point.
So you saw the finance minister's press conference's attempt to
upstage the conversation.
To short-circuit it,
Absolutely.
not to contribute to it.
Absolutely.
To short-circuit it.
Absolutely.
So people must be given a chance to vent and speak until there's a natural... But if you run a country and you've seen what's happened with other protest movements, you would want to remind them of where they've come from. Yeah. And don't forget, the time he did the press conference was about 5 months into a new government.
Yeah.
So it's a bit baffling. We just want an election.
Yeah.
We are thinking of, okay, how do we do our second-term agenda? 6 months down the line, you are so angry.
Yeah.
Why weren't you angry 3 months to elections? Okay, if you are so angry, why didn't you vote them out?
Yeah.
Why did you vote them back into power?
Yeah.
And then 3 months or 4 months into power, you say, you are not fixing the country. Don't tell us what you're doing. We don't want promises. But you use promises to vote for them in elections. So what's your problem?
It's a fascinating question. But the problem which a lot of people miss is that people do not live their lives in 4-year cycles. They do not live it in 5 months after elections. They've lived the experience of this democracy since 1992. A lot of the young people I say are people who are younger than the Constitution. They have seen consistently how the document has failed to live up to its promises. And that's a big concern for how we govern or think about the nation. So if it's to segment the conversation into, but we just came into power and we did that, you are missing the consistency in the government expression and how government relates to its citizens. And that is where the bigger question is, and what we want to draw attention to, that state institutions and establishment that we have deployed to solve Ghanaian problems have failed. And this is not, it doesn't go away by elections or who wins or who lost an election.
This is the point of view. Tonight we're trying to read the minds of the Fix the Country people. We also want to hear from them on what specific demands, if any, because it appears that they felt the conversation was a naturally evolving process which hadn't sort of coalesced into the need for a response yet. So they felt the finance minister's press conference was a non-starter. In fact, they agree with the term Joe Jackson used. It was tone deaf, because we have not finished talking. Why are you not telling us what you're doing? Also, there have been a couple of abortive attempts to protest. On the fateful day the finance minister gave that press release, they had wanted to go on a protest march, but the police did not agree. What do you make of that whole thing? The whole idea that the police need to give you some permission, and there's the ban in public gatherings, COVID.
Yeah.
How are you? I mean, first point, if the conversation hasn't even coalesced properly, why are you thinking of doing an outdoor protest?
Yes.
Why won't you let the conversation itself grow naturally?
Yes. So there are two responses to that before I get then to the other questions you asked.
Yeah.
First of all, let us remember that this is a very unequal society.
Okay.
The people speaking online happen to be part of a privileged few.
Okay.
With having decentralized, access to internet and other things to so many parts of the country. And that for us becomes a democratic deficit of the conversations we are having.
Okay.
To cure that democratic deficit, we want to bring the conversation to people who are offline. So that's the big part of why we are sending that conversation down. It's not to deploy answers to people in the communities, but to show them that a lot more Ghanaians are speaking in spaces where you have not been part of. And you have been denied the opportunity to be part of those conversations. So join that conversation. And it's a refusal to rely on traditional media to relay the message and to translate it or to launder it to people, but then bring it visually to them, that they can be part of the conversation themselves and make that choice for themselves. And that was aborted, and we think that that's a loss to our democracy. Now, on the question of the police and how the police came to intervene, for us, we've said consistently, and you've seen the ways in which we've chosen to use this as a mechanism of protest, that we're holding up a mirror to our democracy, that everybody can see clearly that when young people want to participate in a democratic conversation, using the tools of that democracy, this is how the establishment responds. And it's very critical for anybody who, because of the sense of the full, how should I say, expressions of the democracy and whatnot, we've lost the indicators for tracking whether or not we have substantively given democracy a meaning in people's lives. And the police example in this case is a clear indication of why we are not there yet as a nation. And even the idea of going for an ex parte injunction, which actually bans us in perpetuity from holding any protest under Fix the Country march.
Is that what they did?
Yes, that's what it does. It does essentially. It says you cannot do it until COVID restrictions are lifted. And so there's it's indefinite. And that indefiniteness, without even giving us a hearing, offends our constitutional democracy. A lot of people have talked against this. And actually, there was an open letter which was being circulated among certain legal professionals in this country saying that this really sends us back to a pre-1992 era.
Is it true that some of the leaders were meeting with national security while this whole injunction thing was happening? There were some reports that they were...
Yes, we were supposed to meet the IGP, actually. That's what we understood, because they had given us a letter saying they were denying the request and had evoked an expired legislation as their basis for that. So we said, under the rules that we have 48 hours to respond to you. And we did that. We sent out a letter of about 16 pages where we showed them clearly why they did not have the power to do so. Like I said, we have always been committed to the democratic conversation with the state institutions. So they invited us to meet the IGP, and then on the way to meet the IGP, you are then ambushed into a meeting which is apparently a cabinet meeting which is short of the Minister for Health and Minister for Information. And then he said, speak now or forever hold your peace. You have the opportunity. Tell us what is wrong in the country.
So you were, how many were you?
The three of us.
You and who?
No, I'm not giving indication as to who was in the meeting.
But you were there?
There were 3 people involved.
And who was asking you to speak to cabinet?
So these were cabinet ministers. You had the Minister for National Security, you had the Minister for Interior, Defense, you had Finance there.
So you thought you were going to discuss the protest? To discuss,
because we were hoping that they had seen the error of their ways regarding the letter they had issued to us, and that to have a conversation as to how the protest was going to happen. And then it turns out that, that meeting never happened. So I have no idea as to whether or not there was a sincerity in the overture of the IGP, or this was something else.
So you were sent to a cabinet meeting at the Flagstaff House?
At the National Security offices of National.
But there were some ministers there?
There were practically almost the key cabinet ministers, yes. And except the Minister for Health, I always say.
And what did they ask you?
Well, substantively, first of all, they were asking that the protest be dropped. And the reasons they were using were that there was insecurity in the Sahel. That when they came into power, terrorist activity in Burkina Faso was at 20%, now it's at 80%. And we do not want terrorists to hijack your protest and take it. So we're asking you to drop it. But unknown to us, as we were saying, the day prior, they had already gone to court to secure an ex parte injunction stopping the protest. So that even overture, which we weren't expecting to happen, especially in the circumstances in which it happened, was apparently not sincere as we consider it. You cannot invite a conversation to dialogue and then be taking other moves to impede that process of dialogue.
So what did you say to them in the pseudo-cabinet meeting at National Security?
Essentially, this is what we said to them. We said, we had no idea we're coming to meet you. I mean, we had a long prep where we discussed how we were going to handle the conversation with the IGP. And so to then be surprised in the meeting that we had not prepared for, we could not make presentations which did not reflect the broader community. One of the things I've said consistently, and this is important, is that we do not consider ourselves as having convened the entirety of the 6 million tweets that we have seen so far. That is not our role. We try to convene a protest on the street so that conversations can be brought into the communities. We are now banned by an order of the court, and so we consider ourselves functus official. We were accidental protest of a protest march that never happened, and that's the level of our involvement. So we could only speak to a protest march and not to the broader concerns of the netizens.
So when they asked you to tell them your problems, you said you would not because you were not there to talk about your problems.
That we could not.
You could not?
Yes, we could not. We have no statutory representation of anybody as to give you that information.
But if you are organizing a protest,
yes,
that suggests that you have some locus.
No, the protest is to create a framework for dialogue. So we were creating that framework for where people can...
And they already said, come and let's talk. So you don't need to protest. So what if the purpose of or is it that the purpose of the protest is also to vent? So it's not just to create a chance to meet government. So if government says come and meet a non-protest, it's almost like they've given you a premature...
Absolutely. First of all, we have said that we feel that there has to be a democratic conversation where so many of our citizens are brought into the conversation. Mm-hmm. To put us into a room and say, speak for all Ghanaians, misapprehends what is happening. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing. So we feel like we did not have the authority to have that conversation.
Okay.
Then secondly, when you want to dialogue with a person, you come through the front door. And that is very important to us. Because one of the things we have said consistently is that we do not endorse that paternalistic or paternalism. Do not deploy those they do not work anymore. So let's change the approach. Let's just engage each other as persons who have a Project Ghana at heart. So to come through the back door disrespects what this is about, right? So this is some of the nuances that we're hoping that is drawn out in conversations like this.
But have you guys tried to legally challenge the no protest?
Yes, we are currently at the Supreme Court, where we are hoping that the court would grant us audience on June 8th, as they have given to us. And so hopefully the court reinstates our right and believes, and for us, we've said consistently that this is a test as to whether or not the Constitution is still alive. And that is an important test for democracy. Whether or not, even in a health pandemic, we can still make the Constitution's voice speak loud. And this is what this is about. So it is for the court then, who I believe has traditionally in the past been awake to the protection of constitutional rights, to take on that cloak and protect our democracy.
But Oliver, is it not very early in the day to be doing protests? Because when you look at protest movements, you typically allow them to bubble up to a point where naturally the protest becomes inevitable. You've accused the government of trying to short-circuit the process by asking for dialogue early. Could it not be the same thing you're doing where May we start talking about Fix the Country, 600,000 tweets to 1 million impressions and more. Then a week after that, people say they want to protest.
Yeah.
You don't know who the people who are commenting are. You don't know where they are. You haven't disaggregated the support from region to region.
Yeah.
Yet you want to protest quickly. Aren't you also trying to short-circuit the process?
So this is an interesting thing. It's a view one has to have of what protest means. Either it's the culmination of a process of continuous pent-up anger, or it is a part of a self-expression as well, which contributes to a broader conversation. I believe that the right of protest is as equal as the right to freedom of speech. That is a form of speech. It's a form of engaging audiences. And that is what that is about. So it's a different way of engaging audiences and not the end of virtual conversations. I think that's the difference that one ought to
So
make.
The protest is part of the build-up.
Yes.
It's not the end of the build-up.
It is not intended to be this moment where we welcome and shout, and then we go home and say, we've done our part in saving the republic. I think if we have that view of our democracy, then we are never going to achieve the kind of substantive
But how did you know that people would turn up on the day you chose? I think you chose a day in early May.
We wanted to turn up. We wanted to turn up as part of the people who were having that conversation. And that
when you say
enough
we,
for us.
who are you talking about?
The people who were convening this. There were about 16 names signed up to it. And if 16
conveners.
And if 16 were convening that much. Now, if 16 people turn out on...
Sorry, did this 16 include the Kalije?
Yes.
And also included Gabriel Adai?
Yes.
I see. So are you the executives?
No, we are not.
What
We're
are
people
you?
who tried to convene a failed protest.
What kind of people are you? Are you
part of the broader
what's the age profile?
Of the age profile.
Of the,
well,
the
a lot
16.
of the people within that group are younger than the 1990 Constitution. Most of them are medium age is 22, I would say.
22?
Yes.
University educated?
Yes.
Male or female?
We have been very particular about being gender diverse. And so this is circumstances where we, for instance, for our media communication team now, we are at 40% female representation. We hope that it moves to 60. So we have been intentional about seeing what the wrongs of our republic are, and so that we don't replicate it in having these conversations.
And in terms of professional background, what kind of people are we talking about?
So there are people from all over, right? Like some of the people who have spoken and been publicly visible. You have Andrea Owusu, who is known as the Fiordo, who is a social commentator.
Socialite.
A social commentator.
Okay.
You have comedian Waris, who is a comedian. You have Kalije. You have Sinika Nyame. You have Asiye Dumens. There are people of different backgrounds.
Are there sort of showbiz people apart from Ifiado involved? Some people compare this to the Dumso Must End protest, where you had Yvonne Nelson, Sarkodie and co. Do you have any of these A-list entertainment people?
No. I mean, I'm not saying that they are not part of the broader Fix the Country conversation.
Because I've seen John Dumelo also tweet a few things in support.
I am saying that they are not part of the people who are trying to organize the May 9th protest.
Okay.
So I'm not saying that they are not part of the broader conversations, because we really think that it expands beyond just this 16 people who were listed on a document that went to the police.
So the 16 of you are ordinary Ghanaians?
Ordinary Ghanaians. In fact, when the protest was being drafted, if you can go to my Facebook, the question I put out there, Fix the Country protest loading, May 9th, who wants to organize a protest? And various people came into my inbox.
So you asked that question?
That I put up, yes.
Who wants to be part of a protest?
Yes, who wants to organize a protest?
So you are like
So crowdsourcing the organization of the protest.
And these 16 people were the most vociferous supporters?
These 16 people were people who were comfortable putting their names on a document.
Does any of you work for or belong to a political party?
Well, none formally, none that I know.
None directly?
Yes.
Because people will be wondering whether this, because of the history of Occupy Ghana, a lot of people have asked whether this is NDC pulling the strings.
So you see, and this is a question we get consistently. One of the things I've said is that a lot of times when people are judging something they do not know, they deploy templates from the past to frame it. And that's one of the things that is happening. And it's a conversation I totally understand. But we believe consistently that the reason why Ghanaians have lost their faith in their own voice and ability to mobilize outside of the structures of the two main parties is because people have used their stories and co-opted it to project themselves into certain national leadership. We want to organize differently. We want to mobilize differently. We want to look at why past examples have failed and why Ghanaians could not believe in the project as a viable project to reforming the republic. And so that's why we've been intentional about that this is not going to be a partisan platform. And I have even said consistently that it should be possible for a nation to hold itself to account through other means rather than through the political party system. It's not something that I want to destabilize. I believe in the right of people to have party affiliations. But I do not think that it is producing the results that we need as a democracy. And so we want to organize this differently.
This is the point of view. Tonight we are trying to understand what the Fix the Country Now hashtag and the conveners of the abortive May 9 protest have. I have one of them in studio, Oliver Baka-Fomao. Later on we'll be joined by others to try and get a clearer sense of where this is headed. Stay with us.
Nothing wakes me up better than a cup of cowbell coffee. Delicious coffee aroma.
How can you forget your lines again?
I'm sorry, sir, just that it tastes really good.
Cowbell Coffee!
Enjoy the delicious creamy coffee taste of 3-in-1 Cowbell Coffee.
It's a beautiful day. Waiting. Cowbell Coffee! Taste it, love it. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Good Day Energy Drink keeps you going. Available in major supermarkets and shops near you. Excessive drinking can be detrimental to your health. Not recommended for persons under 18 years, lactating mothers, pregnant women, and people sensitive to caffeine. This advert is FDA approved.
Welcome back to The Point of View. Tonight we're trying to understand the demands of the Fix the Ghana Now people. I'm using the word people because there are different people involved. There are conveners of a protest for May 9, which did not happen, but there are also people who are in social media making a lot of comments. I need to say, though, that it looks like the hashtag has reduced in traction. I think your May 3, 4, 5, all the way to May 12-ish was very high. Yeah. It's come down a bit. Are people getting tired? What's going on?
We are calling it a strategic retreat. But you see, one of the things people miss is that even between yesterday and 12 p.m. today, Ghana Analytics put out that within that period, there have been 29,000 tweets using Fix the Country. But because people are, and that's the thing, a lot of people are still depending on traditional media to project this before they know that this is bubbling up. A lot of people don't understand the virtual space that Twitter is, and so those conversations are not being picked up. People are also waiting for something new and exciting before they jump on the trend, and this is one of the things which people are still expecting. But we are seeing a consistent, staying within 20,000 tweets every day on this. It's a huge.
So in terms of consistency, even though it may not be the number one trend,
yeah,
it's done better than most trends for the past period.
Absolutely.
All right, so we'll come to your demands shortly, but I did an editorial and I sort of spoke to government, which people have shared, and I also said a few things to you guys. Did you watch it? Oh, because I was trying to...
Like a Bible with it.
You did? You watched it?
Yes.
But you obviously didn't listen to what I said because... I don't know if my guys can even play back because I was advising a couple of things. We were a political takeover. I'm not sure if that has happened yet. Yeah. But I also talked about how you should keep it in a structure which is a network and not a hierarchy. So don't start sharing posts. Yeah. I also spoke about the fact this was going to be a long haul and not a short haul thing. And I said a few other things I don't remember at this point. You seem to have quickly organized. So I saw a list of 40 communicators. People have been given different posts.
Yeah.
One teacher post now. That was what I was asking you not to do. You didn't listen to what I said.
So let me say this. First of all, when you look at the media list we put out,
yes,
everybody is described as a media communication liaison, myself included. The problem is that I think generally we have a habit of wanting to make heroes out of every movement. And that when we see a number of people who are speaking and media facing, we assume naturally that they have assumed some leadership position within this. But people are organizing in a way in which certain people feel much more comfortable in engaging with the establishment. And those people have taken on the added personal risk of speaking up. But it doesn't necessarily mean that is the totality of people who are involved in the conversation. First thing. The second one is that we have written this. I mean, there's an op-ed which is on, I think, on my Joy Online, which is talking about how we are committed to a leaderless structure, and it's a commitment we bear. But again, we've said that leaderless does not imply structureless. Now, when you remember your own editorial, you talked about networking. That is structure.
Yes.
It's not leadership, but structure.
Yes.
So that structure, we are putting various forms of structure in place. Even till this day, we've been having conversations. We've not made this public yet. We've been having conversations with traditional civil society, convened with Star Ghana Foundation, where we have told them ways in which we can build alliance and build coalition. We've had conversations with Labour. We've told them about how we are building alliance and coalition. We are organizing a conversation with all the university students, leadership across the country, including Tesco and Tain, all of them. Where we say, let's have a virtual town hall.
Oh, you want to bring Tesco and Tain into this?
Everybody must be part of the conversation.
So what are you trying to achieve? If politics is part of the problem, because your concerns are with politicize too many things, Tesco and Tain represent politics reaching into universities to make people partisan before they come out of school. Why is Fix the Ghana hoping to even bring them to this conversation? So
you cannot treat any segment of the population as hopeless enough for this project. It will not work. We are making an appeal to people that if you can believe in a new project about this country, you can lay down your party cards and join a different conversation. And you must make the appeal directly to the people. And that's what we are doing, and bringing everybody into the conversation, rather than viewing certain people as excluded segments of Ghanaian population who are untouchables. We don't want to have that approach to anybody. It's the way in which politics has been organized in this country, where we divide rather than unify. So that's why we're having those conversations, which is important for us, how we engage people and bring them on board into this conversation.
Wow. So let's talk about your demands. So you have a list of demands?
So we and as you know, the reason why we as persons who try to convene the May 9th protest, again, the protest that through the instrument of law failed, is that we have been very clear that fix the country itself is a holistic demand. Somebody asked me, what is your demand? I said, you won't believe it. It's literally in the name, fix the country. Now, one of the things we have taken upon ourselves as a charge is that look at all these conversations that is happening and analyze the conversations. Because it's a responsibility we bear as citizens as well. And try to come up with what are the broad themes that Ghanaians are talking about. So it's not about an attempt to narrow these conversations down into a list of amenities that once you do this quickly, then you're off the hook. But it's about structuring the conversation so that the people who have been engaging us and telling us that we do not know what you're talking about can begin to have a sense of it. So this is what we are talking about today.
So have you put out a list?
No, we haven't.
So I've seen a list of 10 things some people asked for. I saw Kofi Asari also post some things. Are you saying all those people are not part of the Fix the Ghana?
No, absolutely.
All those lists of things they want?
Absolutely they are. There's over 6 million tweets. Everybody's saying what it means to them on a different level. So which one? We don't want to co-opt that conversation.
So which one is... So if I'm government...
Yes.
People say I should fix the country.
Yes.
They say they are angry.
Yes.
And I try to organize a press conference.
Yes.
They say I'm tone deaf.
Yes.
So I've kept quiet.
Yes.
Now I want to know, give me something to work with.
Yes. So let's think about structure. First of all, if it is about bringing people into the conversation, have we put in place a structure that ensures that the conversation doesn't stay in the virtual space only? That is important.
Are you talking about government or yourself?
I'm talking about state institutions in this country.
If I'm the president of Ghana,
yes,
and I want to respond to Fix the Ghana, what should I do?
that first of all, you have to listen to what they're saying first. They're saying that so many Ghanaians haven't had the chance to speak yet.
So let them speak.
You create a framework for which people who are in the offline communities can also speak to you for the first time. Because when you go about...
But I speak to them when I campaign.
Yes,
I go
you
to
are talking to them. You're not listening to them.
Oh, but they do listening to us. The political parties do. So when they go, even if you think about even the primaries they do, there are levels of this.
Yeah.
They do meet executives, they meet people in their branches and things.
Yeah.
Before then, they do big rallies.
Yeah.
And because of COVID, a lot of their campaigns were smaller.
Yeah.
So they can argue that we listen to the people 6 months to election. We listen to them throughout in our listening tours. Even Mahama can say that. Nanado can say that as well.
Let me give you an example.
Yes.
When the NDC tried to organize the manifesto process differently by inviting Ghanaians to write into it,
yes,
they were ridiculed that you don't even have answers for Ghanaians and you're crowdsourcing it from them. So there's an establishment that doesn't even really think that it is your place to listen before you produce the results. They are asking of you to give out answers so that people can then work with those answers that you have provided them. And we want to turn that logic on its head, that create a framework within which people can tell you their lived experiences, whether in healthcare, how systems have cost lives in this country. And listen to them before you go into solutions mode. So if anybody was in institutions, and we're talking about institutions holistically, then there's a responsibility that we create a framework where different people are brought into a conversation, that there's a process of arbitrage. Because, for instance, when you're talking about different lists, that because it's a democratic process, right, you are campaigning or you're talking to your fellow citizens on a list of ideas, and you are pushed back on those ideas. And there's a framework within which we genuinely, derive certain consensus around what is the best project for moving this country forward.
Wow. So we will not get a list until the conversation gets to a certain stage, because you feel that offline people must be brought in because online people are selected for you. Let me talk to your colleague Gabriel Adai. He is also one of the conveners. Now, for those of you in social media, he is known as Spooky the Maniac. I like the name, Spooky the Maniac. Gabriel, thanks for joining us. Good evening.
Good evening, Bernard.
I like your name.
Thank you for having me.
Is Spooky the Maniac your name from school, or this is just because of the Fix the Country? It's an interesting name.
Yeah, it's a brand name. I am a musician. Aside all that I'm doing, I'm a musician, and this is the brand that I've built for myself over the past 12 years. And to go to the topic, I use the name Gabriel Ohene Adai to join this interview because I am a citizen of Ghana, and I didn't join as a musician. I joined as a citizen. So
at what point did you become part of Fix the Country? Just how did you get involved?
Okay, so I've always, championed this cause of, having Ghana take its rightful place. I'm not too old, but for as long as I have lived, I have not seen any direction that Ghana is going into, because we've always had the conversation of, political parties and, diverse ideas, when both ideas could be merged or, understood in a way that it's going to take Ghana forward. It's either this one says this one's point doesn't make sense, or it's not, something that will take the country forward, so they scrap it, or, nobody even listens to each other. So I listened to what was going on social media, and I realized that the people were actually speaking. And that is one thing I've always been asking for, that the people that actually have the power to put these politicians in power, say what they have to say. And we were expecting that when we wrote the petition to the police, that they would allow the people to speak. But then we got faced with, I don't even want to go there, but honestly, we didn't expect that the police would shut the people up instead of listening to them.
So you really thought that a demonstration on May 9 was a natural and necessary progression in the protest?
Bernard, it's either that or we get to the point where, people don't talk, they just act. And we don't want to get there. The point that, people get hopeless and feel like, what else do I have to lose? We don't want to get there. You have to allow the people to speak, because when they don't speak, it becomes like, a pent-up anger that over time builds and they act upon it. And, we have had several experiences from other countries that we cannot, even hit on. But Ghana as a country does not want to get there. We've prided ourselves in the fact that we are a peaceful nation and a democratic nation. So if we are a democratic nation, this is the point where it should show. Don't you agree with me, Bernard?
If I'm editorializing, I can tell you what I think, but tonight I'm asking questions, so we'll leave it on that. But who or what are you guys, and I use you guys with great respect, not like some riffraffs, who or what are they angry at? Because I keep hearing the word pent-up anger. Is it against the NPP government? Is it against Nana Akufo-Addo? Is it against politicians? Is it against the system? What are you really angry at?
I love this question. You know, if it was against one government, we wouldn't have people of different political ideologies and mindsets come together to say enough is enough of this political talk. Let's put politics aside and come together and strive for the nation. If it was about politics, so we are angry that the people's voice are not heard, because year in, year out we see manifestos of how Ghana is going to be better. The manifestos have no direction for the country as a whole, you know, because I wanted to say this before. If a country like Ghana had a 100-year plan and say NPP was the government in power now, for their 4 years, they could take a portion of the 100-year plan and work on it. And, you know, after the 4 years, we will judge what they've been able to do in that 4 years of the 100 years that we have planned for Ghana, right? But because there's no clear direction, any political party that comes and does a portion of only God knows what, and then they say they've done well for the country. Because Ghana does not have any direction. And that is what we are fighting for. We are fighting that things start working, the system starts working. You know, our constitution is such that it makes the rich richer, the poor poorer. And we are still here speaking about laws that, you know, over time have lost their relevance. And we need, you know, there are so many things that we can talk about, but the government knows all this. The state institutions know about all this. The people have now...
So who is the most important person to fix this? Is it all? Okay, so again, is it Nana Akufo-Addo who's supposed to fix this? Is it MPP government? Is it politicians? Is it all of us? Who do you think has the greatest responsibility to fix the country?
This is a very wonderful question. I think, you know, we are going to start with leadership, and leadership does not come in one person, right? The people of Ghana have put their powers, and I think this is another thing I need to say. Ghanaians do not understand that they have the power. The power that these political leaders hold are not things that they created out of thin air. You gave them the power, so they are supposed to work for you. And if you understand that and they are not doing what you expect them to do, you kick them out because they are not using your power the right way. So when we speak about leadership, the people we have put in leadership roles, we expect them to do for us as we have asked them to. And, you know, we see the things that we have asked them to do in their manifestos, and they don't even, you know, deliver on those. One major thing that worries Ghana, we ask for things, we speak for a while, and then after, you know, something else comes through, we forget. But one thing about Fix the Country, or the group of people that have decided to say enough is enough, or even the Ghanaian populace, I don't even want to say a section of people, because when we did the virtual protest, we saw the magnitude of people that were saying, you know, the country needs to be fixed. So the people that are saying the country needs to be fixed are tired of all of that. Now, if you're going to do it, you do it, and, you know, we don't want the lip service anymore. We are tired of that. We saw the, you know, finance minister come out with another list of promises on the day that the Ghanaians were speaking. Such a tone-deaf, you know, reaction to when Ghanaians are speaking. Effective communication. You should listen and also respond. You don't speak when the people are speaking. So, anyways, we are going to take it on that and still keep on this fight until we see change. So happens on the ground.
Gabriel, one of the little lessons I know about leadership is that the key to being a good leader is to prioritize. So again, you're saying this is a question for leadership. So let's assume leadership is listening to you, political leadership, religious leadership,
I'm sure, yeah,
and other levels of leadership. What should they prioritize in fixing the country? Because I'm trying to get to a certain list of demands or a certain list of things. So if you say we should fix the country,
always get to Bernard, you always get
so
to.
What?
I'm sure Oliver has already told you that.
Yeah, but so the leadership should just keep quiet and let you talk, or they should.
No.
Okay.
They should listen.
Okay. What is the most important thing they should fix within the next 1 year?
Ghana.
Which aspect?
The thing is, when you are voted into power, you are told, or you come with a plan, and the plan is what Ghanaians vote for, right? So if you come and you say you will fix the country, we need to see those plans on the ground. We are hearing a lot about the excuses rather than how the country can actually be fixed.
But Gabriel and Oliver, let me. Okay, I'm not trying to hold you for anybody, but you have structural problems. Okay. So if you come to a house that is weak and you want to fix the house, you start with the structure of the house, right? Because if the house is collapsing, you don't go and change the roof. Yeah. If a house collapses, you don't start by changing the roof. Right. You deal with the foundation. Right. That's what economists call structural issues. Right. So structural issues may include the nature of the economy. Yeah. For example, what percentage of people are in agriculture? How many people are in manufacturing? How many people are in services? So it's a structural issue. Yeah. How many businesses are locally owned versus foreign owned? They are structural issues. Yeah. Do you produce or you import? Right. You can deal with that before you then go to things like salary. Right. Because the structure determines the incomes. Right. Okay. So if you say, we don't care, we don't just fix the country, you're also tone deaf. So because you're also basically not understanding that to fix a system, you need to go about it in a specific way. So if a operator comes to say, okay, I'm trying to change the structure of the economy. Yeah. I'm trying to boost industrialization, one district, one factory. I'm doing Obatampa, whatever. Yeah. And you say, well, you don't fix the, you don't hear that. We just want to fix the country. It's like a child who's saying, I don't want to listen to anything. Just give me food to eat. Yeah.
So let me say this first. There's a point. There's a step you missed before you talk about the structural issues. Yeah. Which is the assessment you need to do to determine that the problem is structure. Yeah. And that process hasn't been done yet. So the process of determining whether or not it is the structure that is faulty is what we are saying. It's been barely 3 weeks, Bernard. I think we are losing a sense of time here. Okay. It's been barely 3 weeks and we want to immediately go into hiring people to root out the foundations. That is where the problem is. It shouldn't be quick fixes. First diagnose the problem. First acknowledge even that there's a problem. Have you heard?
So what is the problem?
That the country isn't working, that the democracy isn't delivering the problem.
But that's not the problem. The country isn't working is not the problem. The country isn't working is the manifestation of the problem. The fact the country is not working is the country is not working. Even a 10-year-old knows that. So you haven't.
So this is exactly what we're saying.
Why is the country not working?
So then you see, once we acknowledge that the country is not working, we haven't even made that acknowledgement yet. Before we go into why is it not working. We are still at the stage where there's a lot of denial as to whether or not the country is working or not.
So you want them to admit the country is not working.
But I'm going to give you a sense of some of the things we've talked about with civil society generally. So
let me take a short break and do that. So Oliver and Gabriel will tell me the key issues they believe are responsible for why the country is not working. Hopefully that will lead to an acknowledgement for the country not working, and then we'll fix it. Hope you're enjoying this. This is the point of view. It's the Fix the Country edition. Stay with us.
In Africa, help is what we do. That is why we, at First National Bank, are relentlessly driven to provide real help to you. The passionate and courageous, the creators and the optimists. These are the entrepreneurs we support, the communities we uplift. It is because of you that real help is what we do. First National Bank, how can we help you?
It's a good day to meet every challenge. It's a good day to want more out of life. It's a good day to wish for it, work for it, go get it. Familiar taste, a delicious indulgent with a flavor you just can't hide. Refreshing energy, gives so much for so little. For a strong performance, you've come to the right place. Good Day Energy Drink. Why wait a minute to enjoy a good day when every second counts? Good Day Energy Drink keeps you going.
Excessive drinking can be detrimental to your health. Not recommended for persons under 18 years, lactating mothers, pregnant women, and people sensitive to caffeine. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Welcome back. We are still trying to understand the Fix the Country campaign. My guest, Gabriel Adai, is called Spooky the Maniac, is on Zoom. And I also have in studio Oliver Bakavomao. So I'm trying to understand the sort of point you're making about Fix the Country in terms of what the problem is.
Yeah.
You say you have a few ideas you've shared in the past.
So this is what we're saying, that we have looked at the entirety of the conversations, and we have distilled them into three things. Structure, not demands, but how to structure the conversation. First of all, we think that we haven't had any confirmation or statement from the highest level which acknowledges that there's a problem. And that problem is important for how people can rebuild faith in the project we have. Say to us that our democracy has failed to materialize in people's lives. And I think that that is the first step in that this conversation needs to happen.
So this is political leadership.
Yes, it's an important step.
So the president must admit that the political system has failed.
Yes, there has to be an acknowledgement and even an apology to younger generations who believed in the project. I grew up in a system where I genuinely believed that Ghana was going to be different in the Vision 2020. I believed in that document. When he said that Ghana was going to look like Singapore, I believed that. But I've lost that faith because I've seen that there's no real project and it's just worse. Now, secondly, we think that a lot of what people are saying is that it's a clear manifestation that we need to find a way to rebuild their faith in when government or state institutions speak. So let us have a truth and reconciliation process where, in the past we've deployed it only to catalog military excesses. We are saying that under the 30 years of democracy, systemic issues have cost life. People need to get on national TV and speak to their fellow Ghanaians and say that this is how the systems have affected me. This is what I've lost. This is the child I've lost. This is what our healthcare has cost me. And we need to do that as a process of national healing. So that's one of the things we think that is important to move the conversation forward. Secondly, we think that having looked at what a lot of people are saying, you can see that a lot of people agreed that the structure of governance is wrong and that we need to go back to the constitutional document itself and relook at it. We've said, for instance, that the entire document doesn't talk of youth. There's no word youth in our constitutional document. When it talks of women, it's talking about childcare. This is a document that is no longer fit for its purpose. So it's the time to reflect on a new constitution for a new generation. That is important questions that government or state institutions have taken to take leadership on and reflect in terms of structure rather than a list of amenities. Thirdly, we are saying that when you look at a lot of what people are saying, there's socioeconomic issues at play. But those socioeconomic issues have to be brought within the framework for which everybody finds themselves centered in. An example could be the Marshall Plan from Germany, for instance. When you have the Marshall Plan context, you have a situation where economic issues are brought in an integrated fashion, where different sectors of the national economy, we create a platform for them to generate ideas. And then we think about how we can create measured ways in which to revive a sense of a project.
What's the end game?
So for us, I think one of the biggest things we want to do is to institutionalize protest culture in this country. One of the things we have seen is that when we put a democracy in place, we're expecting that certain state institutions would hold the key to keep institutional excesses in check. But over time, even those have been weakened and undermined. And for the first time, we are seeing outside of those institutionalized structures, individuals who are coming up and trying to hold institutions to account. We must institutionalize the Ghanaian sense and make protest sexy. And that is the key part of how we want to go about it. And a lot of people don't see the strategy and why we are challenging the legal framework which disables protest. It is important for us that we put that on the table, that we need to remove those barriers. For instance, I'll give an example. Our Public Order Act puts the right to demonstrate together with manufacturing of weapons. It doesn't make sense. Why do we necessarily have to militarize one right that is accessible under the Constitution? So we think that
there are constitutional issues there too. Thank you, Gabriel, and thank you, Oliver. So we hope you've gotten a sense of what's going on. As I said, it's going to be a long process, so we'll obviously talk to them again as the program and the process evolves. My name is Bernard Avle. Thank you for watching tonight's edition of The Point of View. We'll be with you next time. Bye-bye.
The Point of View is sponsored by First National Bank. First National Bank, How can we help you? And Cowbell Coffee, taste it, love it.